Is your phone on silent?
Probably not, but no one calls me anymore because everyone's just on lockdown.
Hello, and welcome to Filling in the Gaps. I'm Justin.
I'm Darren.
Today we're going to be discussing a game that I requested because I very much want at least once a year for us to touch back into the world of Portal, even if we can't have a new proper Portal. And so the one I picked for this time was Aperture Tag. It is, well, the full title is Aperture Tag, the Paint Gun Testing Initiative. It is developed and published by Odd Time Studios, but clearly using a lot of assets from actual Valve. I'm assuming.
It's just a mod. Yeah, it's a mod.
Which is something we're going to talk about a bit later. It's around $5 base. It was released back in 2014, but I'm just getting around to it now. Like you said, it is a community-made mod. It was through the Steam Greenlight, I guess, chosen by the community. I don't know much about Steam Greenlight, so I don't really know exactly what that means. I don't even think
they do that anymore. It was just an old thing. It was basically like for very, very simplified terms, it was more or less like a Kickstarter on Steam back in the day. But I don't even think the Greenlight project even exists anymore.
I had a problem with it not starting. Did you have that problem?
No.
Yeah, it was a very simple problem. I didn't realize that Portal 2 and Aperture Tag had to both be on the same drive.
Oh, yeah, because it's a mod, so you need to install Portal to have it
but for some reason, I didn't realize it needed to be on the same drive.
Oh, right, okay. Well, I just put mine on the same drive anyway. So you got Portal on one drive and you added Aperture Tag to the other one. Okay.
So I realized that was the mistake. So
that's pretty odd, though. That is weird that... I mean, it's on your computer, full stop. Why would the drive matter? But
it does, apparently. And I wasn't the only person because it was very easy to find the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my first tip to you out there if you're playing Aperture Tag and it doesn't start. Especially if it says something about background image missing. That means that the base game is either you forgot to load it, you need to have both loaded, or you loaded them onto different drives, which was my mistake. I found every time that I started the game up, I had to go into the options to enable the controller.
Mm.
I didn't really have to do anything special, but once I clicked on controller to look at the options, then suddenly my controller worked. I did try once to wait a long time and see if I was just being too impatient, and it took a much longer time to register, but I don't think that's the issue. So I really do think that I had to go in every time, which is a bit irritating.
Is there no way to save your preference or something like that?
It saved all the other preferences.
Because that happened to me with Planet Alpha, where the resolution, it would start off in a tiny little box that took up like an eighth of my screen every time I loaded it up. And I realised it was my fault because I was going in, selecting the right resolution, but then not hitting save and just going ahead and playing the game. And when I came back in, it's like, oh, I've got this stupid tiny screen again. But that's not the problem with this then. It just kept on not accepting your controller.
It was very weird. This is the thing. Like I said, once I clicked on controller in the options, then it magically was working. I didn't have to enable it properly or do anything, but it was every time.
Mm.
And so that was pretty irritating. As far as overall, before we get into spoilers, what would we say about this game? It's essentially taking two aspects from the main game of Portal 2, which are the blue gel and the orange gel. So we can run very fast and we can jump very high.
Bounce, yeah. But no white gel.
No. And that's something I want to get into a bit later. Basically, that's it, though. There are very few, what I would say, new modifications to the actual game itself or to really alter the mechanics.
No, they've kept everything pretty much the same. Yep.
So I don't know if we want to talk about, do we recommend it before we get to the spoiler section or not? Do you want to?
I would say I would recommend this to Portal fans. It's a decent mod. I think it's $5. I definitely didn't pay $5 for it. I probably paid $1.
I think if you get it for $1, yes.
I mean, I still got a good 4 or 5 hours out of this game. So even at full price, it's probably still worth it. But it's not as polished, obviously, as the Valve game.
I think that's a bit of an understatement, but we'll get into that in the spoiler section. So I think that's pretty much it. If you're into mods, if you're into Portal and you need a bit more of it and you can get it on the cheap, I would say go for it. You're saying... Would you say it's worth the $5 or would you say to wait for the sale?
I mean, if we're going by $1 an hour, I got that out of it. And I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was good. But I mean, there's always the big kind of community backlash of the big middle finger that is posted on all these mods saying paid mods that goes around because people get angry that people who mod games shouldn't be compensated for their work. I disagree with that. I think these guys put in a lot of effort. I think it's better than other mods I've seen for other games. This one was like, it had a story, it was voiced, it had an ending, you know, it had everything. I think they should feel free to charge whatever they feel is necessary for their work.
I disagree slightly, but we're going to get into that when we get into the spoiler section. I can't really talk about this game otherwise. Yeah, get it on the cheap, try it out for yourself. If you have played it, or if you don't care about spoilers, hang around. It's now time for the spoiler section. All right, I don't know exactly how you want to go about this one. I have my notes that go all the way through like I normally do.
Yeah, let's do that.
But that's like 6 pages.
Well, how long do we have? 3 hours to do this one?
No, we're not doing that. Let me just say it right out now. Overall, I'm very unhappy with this game.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I feel like I could go on a rant for a long time, but there are some very basic things I feel like they didn't do well.
All right, well, let's get into that then.
But do you want to go through an order? Because then we can go through.
Well, if there's any ones that stick out that you feel that we should talk about, there's like maybe 3 main sections to this. Oh,
There's 4. There's 4 chapters. All right, well, let me try, for the listener's sake, to kind of barrel through as quickly as possible. I don't think I want to go through every puzzle.
By puzzle.
Yeah, but I have starred some things that I definitely wanted to say. But let's start off right away with I don't know if it's my biggest complaint, but it'd certainly be one of my biggest complaints would be the story. It doesn't really add anything. It doesn't feel like a new story. And on top of it, we have to deal with Nigel. I'm very surprised because I thought we would be on the same page on this one. Nigel's terrible.
He's not great, but
No, Nigel's terrible. Nigel is a weird, like, sometimes I'm going to be supportive and sometimes I'm going to try and be insulting like GLaDOS, but he doesn't do either one well.
You've obviously not played a lot of mods, Justin.
But I'm not... Okay, here's the thing, though. If I'm buying it, I'm looking at it as it's trying to stand on its own as its own game. And that's where I feel this game fails. It is a mod. It is not its own game.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at this as its own game, then this game for me is just... It's not that good and it's not that fun. And it doesn't add enough to make it feel like a whole new game. And so for me, that I guess let's just have that clear. Like, that's the whole time I was playing it, that's the way I was looking at it, as this is its own game. Using what I was hoping to be good elements from Portal, but it doesn't really stand alone. Nigel isn't a character that really... Well, first off, the voice acting is not great. And that's one of the things very early on. I said either his voice acting could be better or the writing could be better. Either one could help save it. But both of the things are very mediocre. And so having to hear it every time that I would die and start over, I didn't appreciate that at all.
Okay, well, then here we go. This is going to be a fun episode.
There are no subtitles, which is
good.
A bit... Really?
Yeah, I hate subtitles in games. Unless it's in a foreign language.
No, I always use subtitles. I always want to know what they're saying.
You got to pay attention. Because otherwise, you might as well just not talk. I find that if I read the subtitles, I'm not listening anymore. I'm just switching off and just reading it. If I get a chance to switch off the subtitles, I always switch them off.
I always switch them on. So not having them... On top of that, if you don't have subtitles, then people who are hearing impaired,
that's different. Yeah, I mean, I'm saying...
But how is that different? Like, for me, that's important. That should be part of... For me, every game should have subtitles if they're going to have a story.
Is there not an option to switch them on?
I couldn't find one.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know because I didn't check. I just saw that it didn't have any. I was like, oh, good. I don't have to switch them off.
Problem 2, very early on. You do get your gel gun in the image. On the left is the blue, on the right is the orange. For your controls, because I'm assuming you use mouse and...
Mouse.
Yeah. So what did you use to shoot the gels?
Was it left mouse for blue, right mouse for orange, I think?
That would be wise.
Yeah.
On the controller, it's automatically set up to be the reverse.
Oh.
So I'm looking at blue and shooting orange.
Okay.
So I had to go into the controller setup and change that.
Every time?
No.
Luckily
it saved that. But changing it was a really awkward thing where the one I was on to change it they just put up these 3 question marks. So I couldn't actually see what I was changing it to. I'd have to go to another option and back again to keep checking what one am I on? Am I on the one that I want? It was like a 5 to 10 minute nightmare of, can I make this work? I did, and luckily it saved, and I didn't have to redo that again. But that was pretty irritating.
Yeah.
As far as the game, when we start in, we're basically getting some cutscenes with the opening credits that take us into the facility, back into where we belong in the world of Portal and Aperture. The voice, which we're going to find out is called Nigel, starts talking to us as we are in the bathroom. If you hang around long enough, he'll say, there's no time for long showers, you smell a human. And this is already where I go, okay, I know they can't actually afford to get the actual GLaDOS voice in here, but the voice didn't feel right. It felt human.
Yeah, definitely.
And
definitely.
It doesn't have the amazing talents of Stephen Merchant, who can make pretty much anything seem comedically genius. So I was kind of on the fence at this point. We go into the main room where we'd normally get a bit of a tutorial. All the furniture folds up and goes into the wall instead. We have to go out into what looks like a really cheap, dirty hotel.
Yeah. With
vending machines that only sell Citranium, this citrus drink made by Aperture.
There you go.
I'm
sure it's safe to drink.
There are, I think, 39 rooms on this floor, something like that.
Yeah.
Or 21, something like that. But we're definitely on floor 39 because it says 3901 to 3911 this way. And if you walk to the other side, there's one room that has kind of police tape on it. Don't enter here. But you can't really get into it. You can't do anything. So you walk out and you're supposed to take the elevator, but already we're into the world of broken Aperture because the elevator doesn't work. We have to hop down, hop awkwardly onto some boards hanging off the elevator to actually get to where we're supposed to be going. It's a bit more Portal 2 than Portal 1, where everything is broken from the beginning.
This game, is it set, just to maybe go off track for a little bit here, to place this in time, did you place this between Portal 1 and Portal 2 or after Portal 2?
I want to place it between Portal 1 and Portal 2.
That's what I'm thinking.
However, there is a line for one of the endings where he refers to his boss being very upset about what happened before. He wouldn't be talking to GLaDOS, who we can only assume is his boss. He wouldn't be communicating with her because she was dead between Portal 1 and Portal 2. There is the possibility, I think, that it could be after Portal 2, because as we discussed, minor spoilers from the co-op, there are more humans.
Yeah.
And so...
Because he does say that at the end. He says she blew the place up and she eventually just had to let her go.
Which makes me think that it has to be after Portal 2.
Yeah, actually, thinking about it properly. Yeah.
In this back room, we're kind of surrounded by movie backdrops. There are these kind of scenes that clearly can be moved around, obviously hinting at something they're going to do in the future. We have to kind of jump around. There was a part where I jumped down, and you should be able to jump down, but it killed me instantly because the game didn't want me to go there.
Don't remember that part.
It's very possible you didn't, or you probably tried to jump all the way to the bottom or something like that. There were a number of these times where it felt like, and it's hard not to compare this to Portal and Portal 2, where it comes from. Yes, it's a mod. Yes, it's indie. Yes, it's going to be much lower budget. But there are some rules, I feel, when you make a game so closely tied to those games that it should still adhere to certain things. And this is one of them. If I can jump to it, I can jump to it. If I can't, then there should be something blocking my way, or it shouldn't be there. Portal and Portal 2, they do a very good job of letting us explore without that threat.
Yeah, because there's only a few places in Portal 2 that you can actually jump off something and die, that you're not protected. Usually there's always some kind of barrier that you can't jump over. Yeah, everywhere that you can Portal 2 is almost like a safe zone. Otherwise, it limits the number of possibilities to solve the puzzle of that level. Otherwise, if you've got free reign over everything, then, Chris, you'll be stuck on a level forever. But I didn't find that too much with this, to be honest, but I did find that there were empty spaces in this game that you could get to that just had either been overlooked or they just hadn't bothered to fix.
I think why it bothered me is this is the very beginning of the game, and it made me think, don't explore outside of what we've given you. And that was probably the wrong signal to send.
Well, especially by the end of the game.
Because of the ending.
Yeah.
And I feel that hindered me, I think, throughout the game. Especially the ending. Even though I suspected it was there, I felt like that should have been hinted at more. There should have been more of these kind of moments of, throughout the game, there are other things to see. And this one where I died, it wasn't far. Like the same probably distance.
I mean, did you fall down a hole or did you just land on something?
There was another little landing that I tried to get to that was no further than jumping from, say, the floor we started on to the elevator or to the platform below that. It shouldn't have killed me. And so this is where I kind of worried that I didn't know what was going on. And that becomes worse with some of the mechanics they've added, but we'll talk about that in a bit. We get to start our first test as a test cube with a button.
Old Faithful?
Yeah. As it should be. I think that's a great way to start it off. And that's why I've started this one here, because that's the way they all start off. And I do think that you should start off small and level up. There's a part here that I'm not sure I quite remember, but it did bother me. There was something about the button for the first portal. It kind of appears to drop us in place, but there's an orange light tube that picks us up. Only when we go through the portal. Why don't we see that orange tube before we go through the portal? It felt to me like they were trying to trick me in some way. Make a leap of faith, it'll be okay. Whereas what I really want is I want to see what I'm jumping into. And this again is part of, for me, going against the Portal ethos of you see everything. We're not tricking you. And this game a few times felt like it was trying to trick me. And I didn't like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember that. Yeah, I didn't have these issues that you're having. Definitely not. I would have written them down, but...
Yeah, I just feel like you, Mr. I'm going to explore everywhere.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, you've gone full Talos principle here, man. I mean, maybe that's the thing. Maybe, again, because it's a mod and I'm not expecting much. Maybe I just bumbled through the game, you know. I just very linearly just went, this is what I'm expected to do, and that's it, you know. I do have some problems, which I'll get to. We probably have the same problems.
Probably. I'll just have more of them.
But so far I'm on board. I like the beginning. Like you said, the voice acting is not stellar, but I'm on board with it. I like it. And I like being back in the world, man. You know, I like that.
I would, but the thing is, this feels like you can't go home again, is what this feels like. Yeah. This feels like, the house is still there, but it's not the same as it used to be. You go back and the trees have all changed and the neighbors are different. And, you know, it's not the same place that it used to be. And that's kind of what it feels like to me.
You can never go back home, but you can shop there. What's that from? Do you know that movie?
Not a fan.
Grosse Pointe Blank.
That's going back a ways for me. That would be college days.
10 years. No. So next.
We get into, to get the gun, we get into a room where there are laser beams, 2 glass cubes, and 3 things. So we've got 2 spinners and 1 receiver that we've got to figure out how to manipulate. For me, here's the thing. The game, I feel, is very inconsistent with its level of puzzles. And I really feel like it doesn't ramp up or scaffold the information very clearly.
Yeah, I think it does rely on you having obviously played Portal in the first place.
Right. Which, as a mod where you have to own that, I think that's okay. But there are some times in the game where I feel like if you are going from that basis of knowledge, you know everything you need to know. There are other times where it just feels like they're talking down to me after that. The levels, like I said, they can get very, very difficult, and then all of a sudden they just give you a super easy one that doesn't seem to fit.
Case in point for that is the very last level. Like, just shine a light through there, get to the other side, and jump on the light bridge. You're done. It's like that last level was like, that's it?
Yeah. I feel very much the same.
Yeah. I mean, the challenge is not dying. Like that's where it comes in. But it's like, when I got to the end of that, I was like, what? That's all? Wow.
That's an issue. So I solved this one. This is where you grab your gun. However, I didn't grab my gun. I got close to it, and then the cutscene started. And there was a part of me that was very worried that I would get to the other side and not have the one thing I need to get through the entire game. Didn't happen, though. I did have it. We're now actually in. Nigel tells us his name. As I said, this is the part where I've realized that the controls are backwards from the way they look on the screen. And so I go in and I fix that. Nigel says something, I guess it's supposed to be funny. Please only paint where necessary. But of course, I then tried to paint everything to see if there would be an achievement pop up. There are no achievements for this, are there?
I didn't see any.
That felt a little bit like something missing. I mean,
actually, no. I think there's maybe a rule on Steam where you can't have achievements for mods. Otherwise, achievement hunters would just stuff mods full of achievements and just rack their achievements into the billions.
Okay.
So there's probably a rule on Steam for
I just feel like it's missing something without that. Not that I really need achievements, but there was something really comedic and wonderful about the way that Valve did the achievements for Portal 2 that I was hoping to see some of those here, an unnecessary paint job for painting the whole room or something like that. And so that...
No, I think it's illegal. Yeah.
Okay, well, that would make sense then. I can't fault them for that. We are introduced to the green... I hate the Fizzler. So the Fizzler is the name for the screen where it gives and takes powers away.
Yeah.
I guess it's okay. I just miss the fact that the names all had acronyms before, and they all seemed to make sense, or they used to be funny. I didn't really get that this time. And we've talked about this with other games, that I really hate games that take away my agency. And this game just does it on virtually every level. Oh, you have a gel gun. Do you want to use it? Well, maybe. This is the whole reason I'm playing the game.
You can use half of it.
Yes, for a very long time, you can only use half of it. I imagine you quite like it, though, because you wanted to play around more with the gels. And I think that's the biggest thing that this game gives, is people who wanted to play around more with the speed and the bounce. Now you get more chance to play around with it and see what you could do with it. Did you notice doing anything that you couldn't have done in the regular game?
Well, first of all, hopefully there'll be a screenshot on now where I did a few paint jobs myself. Ta-da! And
wait, are they going to be patterns, or am I just looking at rooms that are just covered?
You'll see it. We'll see when this video comes out.
All right.
So a few Jackson Pollocks maybe. But what I noticed, and I don't know if you noticed this as well, but the music is missing from the speed gel. You know
I totally noticed, because you made such a big deal about it when we recorded the other episode that I was listening for it this time. And when it wasn't there, I went, oh, Darren's going to say something about this.
Yeah, it's missing. And that's just such an incidental thing. But I really noticed it not being there. It was kind of there in some bits, but it wasn't the same. And surely, as a mod, you're just cutting and pasting a sound file. I'm no computer science engineer. I don't know if that's a job. But put the sound in. But yeah, it was a lot of fun running around, doing stuff. My main gripe with that is this game has way too much parkour in it for me. There's some parts where I don't know if I was just solving it weird. On the one hand, I do like that there's multiple solutions to each level, but I probably chose all the really stupid hard ones to do.
See, that's something I definitely want to talk about, because my brain, I was typically only seeing one way at a time, or very minor ways where you could do two things. So I do want to get to that later and find out if you have any memories of ones that you actually did double ways, because you told me that before I started playing, and I didn't really see it a lot of times. And like I said, the only ones I saw were very minor, like, ooh, I could jump over this, or I could bounce this way, but it wasn't really a whole new solution. It just felt like step 2 could be done in 2 ways. Our first real test, the one they label as test 1, is a lot of bouncing around. So this is bouncing up walls the side to side, which they're reminding us of here, but I didn't really feel like they did a whole lot of in the game. But again, my thing is here, this is trying to show you everything you can do all at once, and that feels like a very quick ramp. Like, here's the review, but it's the review of everything.
Yeah, it's basically, here's all the stuff you learned from Portal 2.
So if you're rusty, like, it just feels like too much to throw into somebody rusty, and if you're fresh, then you don't really need it. Again, maybe that's a bit unfair, but it's where it doesn't feel like its own game. I get into test 2. Right, here's where already in my notes I put, this feels a bit like Portal fan fiction. Like, it's not quite Portal.
Well, it is in a sense, yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
I have some issues with some things, like the gel. So now, instead of needing the white walls, we just have plywood everywhere and that kind of thing. You paint everywhere, except on glass.
Or the mesh wire.
Mesh, I understand, because it goes through. But glass? It just doesn't seem to make any sense to me.
It's gel-resistant glass.
I guess so.
TM Aperture Science.
There's some more kind of wall balancing and stuff. This one, there is an interesting thing where you have to slide down to a bounce to bounce across to the exit. That was kind of fun. But unfortunately, in my notes, I'm like, I hate this test. It's really hard to physically see all your objectives. And this becomes, for me, a recurring thing throughout the game. The objectives are hard to see.
You mean the exits, yeah?
The exit, but even sometimes the steps. I don't see some of the steps. And that seems to be a real hindrance to me as I'm playing. I felt like, and we're going to get to this later, but there's a huge section of the game I had to play twice. And because of that, I could see going through a second time and looking at it and going, yeah, this wasn't really displayed in a way that would be easy to understand. Most of Portal 2 is you could see it. You just need to figure it out.
Yeah, there's definitely some areas in this where I was looking around like, I can't even see the exit from here. Again, though, I didn't really have a problem with the game. Once, you've got what's in front of you, and you've got a switch, and you follow the line. It's like, I got to activate this. It's a trail of breadcrumbs, pretty much. The levels weren't so convoluted for me that I didn't know what I was doing, but sometimes when you walk in and you're just like, I always had that feeling of dread when I walked in a room where I was like, ooh, okay.
But what you're saying, like, I couldn't always tell where the exit was.
Sometimes they're around corners, like blind corners.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that for me is a real problem. I need to know my objective.
Where am I going? Yeah.
Here's the problem I have, again, kind of overall. In a way it works, in a way it doesn't. If you're holding a cube, you are coding the cube. This makes it very good if that's what you want to do. But it means that every time you need to spray while holding a cube, you have to put it down, spray, and then pick it back up again. And this will happen throughout the game.
And you got a lot of bouncy cubes going all over the place.
Whereas you could sneakily, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, in Portal 2, you could shoot portals while holding a cube, so you didn't have that irritating extra mechanic.
That at least would make sense, but the problem is, I think, they use that mechanic specifically to solve one of the puzzles. So if you could shoot around things, then they'd have to rethink that entire level, or at least part of that puzzle, because you have to shoot what you're holding to solve. So, but the thing is, it's only used once. That's the thing. It's like, just ditch the puzzle. There's only one time that I can remember where you have to physically hold an object and then paint it orange so that when you put it down, it doesn't bounce away.
Oh, to paint it orange, yes. But there were times where I think I had to do it this may be one of the times where we did it differently.
Differently, yeah. Okay.
Because there are some where you could code it in orange and slide it.
Okay, I did not do that. Okay. I think I know where you did that. I solved that completely different. I think I know exactly the level that you're talking about. Is that where the crusher is and you got to slide it under the crusher through the barrier?
No, there's one where I wanted to get it to an aerial faith plate and get it to bounce over the faith plate and through one of the red screens. And so I did it that way.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't do that, but I just picked it up and bounced myself over.
I will say this, though. Obviously, the no coding glass helps for the fact that if you accidentally coat or you have to coat a glass cube, then it's not ruined.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be. I don't want to do too much with this section. There's a long vacuum tube cutscene that they do in, I think, after Test 3. We get this huge cutscene and then don't really get that again. It's almost like teasing you, like maybe they had the money and the resources and the time early on in the game, but towards the end of the game, they didn't.
Yeah, I wanted more of that, to be honest. I mean, but I guess they thought, oh, it's boring. We'll do it once, and then we won't bother doing it again. But I liked that, and I thought they were going to maybe show off more. Like that part in the beginning of Half-Life where you're taking the train and you're late for work, and you're taking the monorail, and you get to see the entire Black Mesa facility for the first time. You see all the areas and all the radioactive goo and robot workers and everything. It's like, I thought they were going to do that where travel through the tubes and you get to see all these weird areas of aperture science that they dreamed up for us. But yeah, it was just like one or two long rides and that was it.
This is also where we start revisiting some of the levels from Portal 2. How did you feel about that?
I can see the way you're looking at me. I liked it. I liked going back because I liked the idea that, hey, you solved this with portals. Now solve it with gels. And I did. I really enjoyed, because you know the answer to the puzzle. But you're like, oh, but I don't have a portal gun this time. How do I do this? I really enjoyed solving the same puzzle, but in a different way. Definitely.
I like the concept. In a way, though, it felt, and I've seen this in a lot of the negative reviews saying that a lot of it felt too easy. And I think that some of these do feel too easy. I've already solved it with portals. It doesn't take much more to solve it with these gels. In fact, it's almost too easy to solve with the gels. I was okay with it early on, and I really think that it would have been good to start us here instead of coming back to here and then coming back to here again and again. There's even a section, I can't remember exactly. Chapter 3 is called It's All New From Here or something like that. I've got it in my notes later. I don't remember if it's after that point or if it's after Nigel says it's all new from here. But there's a point where they say that. They literally tell us that. And the very next test is one we've already done.
I think that's part of the humor, though, isn't it?
Is it?
I thought so, yeah.
It must be or supposed to be. But it just kind of irritated me.
It's all new from here. Oh, actually, it's not. That's typical Portal, man. That's very Portal, I thought.
Yeah, and I'm sure if Valve was doing it, that joke would have played. There's just something about this game where those just don't play. But this is a section where, as we begin Chapter 2, and we now finally have the speed gel, the first 2 tests here just feel like a joke after what we just did. The stuff we've done before, like just before this, test 6 out of 16, there are, this is where we get to use portals, but we have to use buttons to move them around, and there's this whole platform going up and down that you have to be able to jump through, and then, it is a tricky puzzle and interesting. And then we get to these 2, and like the first one is just run across a ramp and run under a crusher using the orange gel. Okay, I guess. But this is where, again, are you starting me from scratch or are you starting me from already knowing Portal 2? Because these 2 things don't seem to line up,
I felt a bit like, who's that guy from like The Incredibles? Samuel L. Jackson's character, the Iceman.
Frozone?
Frozone. Yeah, like, because you can run and spray the orange gel in front of you as you're going, so you can just book it across the level.
Okay.
Lots of fun.
Before Frozone, there was Iceman from the X-Men, and in particular, in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends from the 80s, where, this game is probably the closest that it feels to being that kind of character. And I get that.
You can also do it in Roblox.
Well, from what you told me, you can do anything in Roblox.
We're definitely doing an episode in Roblox. We have to.
There's a part here, so they say all new from here, no more recycled tests. And behind the scenes, we hit a button to open a door that basically drops us into a pit. And here's another one where I got stuck on a walkway and I couldn't jump over the rail. Basically, I wasn't meant to go down on this walkway, I think. I was meant to just walk up this broken scaffolding that's on an angle to get to where I was supposed to be. But because I got down onto this walkway, which was there, I couldn't get back over the railing to get back to where I was supposed to be. I ended up having to reload the last save, which is something I should have taken more advantage of because I didn't realize you could do manual saves. I didn't do that enough. And I hit some real glitches in this game where that was a real hindrance.
F6 is your friend. Yeah, you'll see if you're watching this video, maybe I'll try and cut them out, but there's a lot of bits where I'm just like, okay, I made that jump, save, do the next jump, I fail, okay, reload, fail, reload, fail, reload, made the jump, save. just like little baby steps, man, just crawling through levels.
That's probably what I should have done. That's more what I did. There's a strategy game called Attack of the Earthlings, where, again, I didn't realize you could save every little bit. And so when it started to get difficult, I was really getting frustrated until I found that out. And then all of a sudden, the game became much, much easier.
Right.
I want to talk about Test 10.
Okay.
This is a simple runway, but it's to a spinning wall. I really feel like we weren't ready for this one. I really feel like before we get to the spinning wall, we should have a stationary wall at an angle to practice to see how bouncing actually works at an angle. Because this is something that we haven't done a whole lot of in Portal 2, and certainly not
to this degree.
This way, no. And so this felt like it was a jump in logic that I wasn't quite ready for, and I really struggled with this level.
Yeah, there was, maybe not this one for me, but there were some where I found that I was thinking like, okay, the angle of incidence should equal the angle of reflection kind of thing. But I found that sometimes it was, but sometimes it wasn't. And I don't know if it was just the way that my cursor was facing at that moment when I bounced. I don't know if it takes it from the kind of trajectory that you're on into it, or if you can move your mouse at the last minute, does it send you off in a new direction? But yeah, there was a few bounces, even with non-stationary ones, like towards the mid to late game, there was one bounce that I just couldn't seem to make, but I solved it. I ended up not making that jump and doing it another way. Maybe I wasn't supposed to make the jump that way. I don't know.
Well, I am going to talk about that in a bit, but the thing with this level that really irritated me was I felt like I wasn't exactly sure where I was going to be hitting. I wasn't exactly sure what I needed to coat or how much. I was trying a couple different things where I thought maybe I need to speed along the side, because I think at this point we've already seen the curves. So maybe I'm going to speed along the side and then bounce off of it. So I was trying all sorts of things, but every time I wanted to do that, every time I died, I had to start over and recoat everything. And this is a real issue if you're not doing the baby steps. If you're going back to where they save you, sometimes they make you do a whole lot over again. And that increase of iteration time is really grating. And it really slows me down. And having to paint again, early game, it's fun to get to paint, but then after a while, it starts to feel a bit tedious.
What I did notice, though, and I would maybe disagree with that, is when I wasn't doing because I didn't really do the baby steps until the really late game, where I was like, basically, you're jumping onto a pinhead. But I did find that if you mess something up and then you had to restart, they put me back just enough that basically if I was in the right place or if I'd done the right thing, then they're like, right, we're starting you from this point. But if I'd painted a whole bunch of garbage that wasn't needed, or if I was in the completely wrong area for this part of the test, if there was something I had to do before that, then they would put me way back to that. So I kind of appreciated that, because otherwise it would be really misleading if they left me quite close to where I was following this red herring that I was after. They're like, no. Okay, you died.
That's
back
fine.
Here.
But this game, for example, this level, for example, that's not an issue. There's only a runway and the spinning wall. There's nothing else.
Okay, fair enough.
So I just have to code it again every time until I get the exact right trajectory. I do want to talk a bit here, since I've just mentioned it. The curved walls.
I was just about to talk about that.
Let's do it.
I think that's a good solution to a problem that the modders had, which was, how can we pack more into a scene without just keep going in a straight line? Like, they wanted to turn corners quickly, keep the game moving. Some of the hardcore parkour stuff, try saying that, fast, drunk. Some of the hardcore parkour stuff later on is annoying, but I found it easy to get around that. Like, just whoosh, boom, you're around the bend.
The first ones were. However, the big parkour level that you keep hinting to, they were terrible. There are some real issues. So one, within the game, them telling me I don't have to code it with anything doesn't make any sense. It should have to be covered with orange
shell.
Yeah,
you should, because otherwise you launch onto it and then just your shoes are squeeze, you fall flat on your face and off the edge.
So that doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, make me code it. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Telling me I'm just going to, am I just running super fast now? Like Sonic suddenly...
Like just jumping out of a car on the highway, just...
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, agreed.
The other thing is, as with a lot of the parkour stuff, where your cursor or where my kind of bullseye is matters. And when you are not looking directly across, but you're looking towards your next thing, sometimes that can make you fall right off of it.
Yeah.
And that was a real problem. I also had a problem in the hardcore parkour level where I was hitting the wall, the side of it, constantly. And that should never happen, especially when it's timed. In fact, let's just jump to that one, because I think we need to talk about that one. I both love and hate that level.
I skipped it.
I did eventually. Boy, did I try. Yeah. I tried for at least an hour.
And I'm glad they gave you the option to skip, because if they hadn't, that would have been it for me.
No, that was the rage quit level.
I would not have pushed through that.
But this is also where Nigel's voice is even more irritating, because you have to hear it again before every run. And every run, if the mechanics were solid, I think it wouldn't be a problem. But I think that this level really accentuates every problem it has. The curves, because I have to look across or I fall down, doesn't give me enough time to look to where I'm going. When I'm spraying stuff to the ground right in front of me, like I have to be looking down, and that causes problems with the physics and causes me to fall at times I shouldn't. The aerial controls are not good. And so if I miss it by a little bit, I'm done.
Yeah.
You're just stopped. And there's no restart level. So you just have to wait the 50 seconds for it to stop. There is issues as well with the bouncing where it just, maybe it's me, but there are times where it just feels a bit inconsistent. It doesn't always land me in the same spot, even if I'm doing everything the same. Like I said, I spent a lot of time on this level.
How long did you spend in this?
I honestly think I tried for an hour.
Oh my God, man. No, I tried for about maybe 15 minutes. I was like, nah, screw this. I'm done.
I made it pretty far, but the problem was that I kept dying very early on. And so even if I got to the end or towards the end, I was only doing that once out of 10 times because I was dying early on because of these issues. I
don't know what there's got to be a name for this, but I was thinking the exact same thing, and it's like the best name I could come up with, or that I'm going to try and come up with, is like 1980s out of the zone kind of 1980s, 1990s out of the zone fail rate. I don't know what it is, but do you remember like way back when like you were doing like time trials or something like that, and you had to barrel through a level? Yeah, you would get to the end, but then you'd die, but you'd die and you'd mastered that first part. Then you'd hit a thing where you would keep making the same mistake right at the beginning every time. And you'd eventually have to just like throw the controller to someone else. Like, you do it. I'm in that bad zone, that bad luck zone. I can't get past the first box anymore.
Right.
You got to refocus. You got to calm down, refocus, and do it again.
Well, I think this is your chance to. What do you want to coin it?
I don't.
Well, you just missed it now. Somebody else is going to coin it, and they're going to become famous. And
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I made it to the first. I got up onto the next level. Like, I made the bounce. You got to turn around, then start spraying orange gel. Which, to be honest, on a mouse, I'm all about keyboard and mouse. I don't own a controller. I haven't used one since probably before the year 2000. But this was not easy on a keyboard and mouse, man. And I'm usually.
It wasn't easy on a controller either.
Oh, really?
Well, I didn't mention.
Yeah.
But I think it's the mechanics. I think the mechanics really let you down. It's a great idea for a level, but it's really poorly done, and it lets you down, and it kind of stops the game dead.
Yeah, so I'm very thankful that they put that big button, just like, you're useless, skip this level, fine.
I think them doing that, though, is a real indicator that they knew it was a problem.
I think if we went back into the forums and dug it up, they probably didn't have that button, and they were so many complaints like, nah, I'm done with this. I'm not buying this game if you're not going to fix it.
Did you get to the part where a wall falls down?
No.
Yeah, there's a part. So I think what you're talking about, you get to the platform where you're supposed to paint orange, get up to aerial faceplates, and then, you have to bounce back. And then when you get just beyond that, that's where
the walls fall down. Great.
Yeah, you run and jump, and then there's a wall right in front of you. And as you're flying, kind of like a House of the Dead kind of thing, you're coming up against a wall, and then the wall falls down.
Right.
So now you can go on. But it just felt, again, like they were trying to trick me. Don't try to trick me. Don't try to
especially on this level.
In this level. Let me see what's coming. And that's a big part of the problem is you have to be so focused on what's 2 centimeters in front of you. You can't really be looking. So there's really no way to beat this game the first time through unless you're a Jedi. You basically have to know what's coming, and you can't. Most interesting level, worst to play.
Yeah.
What did you think about the red screens?
The red screens. Oh, yeah. Again, it's just another mechanic to help. Something different. So basically, the red screens are the ones that we can throw things through. So we can go through the blue screens, but the objects can't. The objects can go through the red screens, but we can't. Fair enough. I like that addition.
I didn't feel like it was explained.
No, it wasn't explained at all.
That's a problem.
Yeah, you just had to go. I just walked through it. I was like, oh, can't walk through this. Okay.
So the first time we see it, I think, is on the level I was sliding the cube before.
Right.
And that was a real problem because I was able to get myself up and over and through the red screen, but you don't die quick enough. And so I thought I died because either I landed in an area like at the beginning where I wasn't supposed to be, or because the game thinks I landed in a liquid that's deadly.
Right.
And it took me a while my notes are back and forth. What does this red screen do? What are the rules? And I really feel like that should have been laid out. That should have been very, very clear. And it wasn't. And so there were times where I didn't know, am I allowed through? Am I not allowed through? And because you die so slowly after you go through it, and you don't get an animation to show that you died or anything. So for the longest time, I was convinced that I was just doing something wrong in practice. So I get to the other side, and whatever's on the other side, that's what's killing me. But no, it's just
the red screen of death.
Red screen of death to stop me. Again, not to go through too much level by level, there were some interesting things I did with the blue gel as far as having to bounce across and then bounce back. There were some interesting things with the Fizzler where going through one way, I think the green way gives you powers, going through the purple way takes powers away. Of course, I don't like them taking powers away, but I did think a couple of the levels where you have to bounce yourself back over to retain the powers now that you have them, I did kind of like that. I've got my powers back and I'm going to keep them. But levels where I get them back, but I have to keep losing them to go to the difference, I didn't like that.
Yeah, again, I like that because it adds a new dimension to all the puzzles. There was one really hard one. I can't remember which one it was. It was the one where there's the tunnel and you have to send a cube through another thing. And it was a mess, but it was... Yeah,
I'm really going to get it from that description.
It was the one where you walk in. Yeah. It's in the later ones where they've got like the backdrop. There's a picture of the Earth.
Yes. Yeah. Where you only get blue gel.
Yes.
I spent a lot of time that.
I like that level, but it was really tough, man. Some of these levels are hard, man.
It was, but I didn't like it. Let's talk about that level. So that level, there's basically nothing. And this is the other thing. If you're going to have this be a blue only level, do this earlier. Don't do it now that I have 2 powers. Like the point of leveling up is to have the powers. I hate when games give us stuff and then they keep taking it away. And this time, not that I needed it, but you didn't have to tell me. Like Nigel specifically says, well, there's only blue here, but make no mistake, this is a tough level. I'm like, you don't have to tell me that. I'll be able to figure that out, 1, because that's the only power I have, but 2, let me make mistakes with the orange then until I figure it out. What really got me, so in this, there's a hallway, and you go through, and there's basically an orange tunnel that you can have power for, bring over some blue liquid through a portal back into the main hallway, and then you basically have to ride it through to, at least the way I did it, jump out of the light tunnel, grab the cube, and bounce back up into the light tunnel.
That's what I did in the end.
So if that's their main way of doing it, yeah, I don't like it, because I don't like the timed issues. I don't like the things that rely heavily on the mechanics, especially mechanics that are a bit awkward, even in Portal 2. Jumping out of a light tunnel, trying to do it exactly where you need it to be, grabbing a cube on the way down, and coming back up again.
I failed that at least, I don't know. I feel I want to say 20 times, but it was probably just 10, but it's still a lot.
And that's after I figured it out, because this one was tricky. Yeah. This one took me a long time.
But the thing is, once you fail, then you have to do the whole thing again.
All over again. And this is what I was talking about, the iteration time and making you redo everything.
Yeah, because you know exactly, like you said, exactly. Finally, I worked it out. It's like, okay. And again, that's pretty smart, but dropping down and grabbing that and bouncing back up was tricky to do.
I was also quite concerned because I had let some of the blue gel get through.
Me too.
And I was so afraid that cube was going to bounce
out. Yeah.
That's where I really feel like the game did let us down. One, I think we could have had more gels that could have been more interesting. But one thing they really could have done was given us a water hose so that we could clear away some of our mistakes. It would have been a bit better than, as you said, on the one level, we have to coat the cube with orange so that or the ball, right? So it doesn't bounce around. Let's talk about that level, because that level,
I was stuck for a bit. Because I didn't realize that you could, well, you obviously knew that. This level would have been a lot easier for you than it was for me, because I didn't know that you could paint the stuff that you were holding.
Really? You didn't know that before that?
No, because I
figured this out very early.
Because I'd never bothered. I'd always set something down, painted everything, because I didn't want a big cube in my face when I'm painting, man. I'm Picasso at work here. So I was like, okay, I can't paint that panel that the ball bounces onto.
Right, so we're on test 7. This is right towards the end of the game.
So I was like, can't do that. What else can I do? Can I jump onto it and pick it up? No. Fall through? No, can't do that. Okay, I'll paint the ball. Okay, I've got the ball painted, put it in the thing, boing, it just bounces away. I was stuck for at least 30 minutes before.
That took me about 2 minutes. Because I realized that there was only one other option. So I was able to do that. But where I was stuck for probably an hour or more was getting the ball to bounce to me.
Right.
This is another thing where this kind of came out of nowhere. I explored the heck out of this level.
Yeah, you did. I saw your screenshots.
Yeah, I was clear up there's a secret area above the entrance. Totally found that because I thought maybe I'm missing something. And I was able to get that. You had to help me out with that because I really, it didn't make any sense to me. When you spray a cube, it bounces very randomly. It doesn't ever seem to bounce the same way. So it didn't really seem like there'd be a consistent thing. And the other problem is this is the level I got stuck on, but not stuck as much because of myself, but because of where the autosave had me. So that platform is a mesh platform where you're trying to get the ball to bounce to you. So I got there by bouncing there. I didn't have a light bridge there.
How did you bounce there?
So
what?
Either it's not that hard to bounce there, or two, I had found a way on top of where the portal is. So, like I said, I explored this level a lot. So that might have been the trick.
Yeah.
And then to jump from there to bounce down to bounce across because you got the height. But I had such momentum that the first time I got there, I basically landed and then flew right off of it again.
Right.
Well, that's where it auto-saved me. In motion, flying off. So hopefully in our video, you're now going to see about a 1-minute section of me desperately trying to figure out how to. And I figured out there is a way for me to pull back on the joystick and keep myself on the platform, but there was literally no way to get back across the other side. I did it once, but that was a glitch. And
so where was your last save then? How far back did you have to go?
Unfortunately, the save still took me right. So even when I glitched and I got to the other side, when I died, it still took me back to the falling off the platform, and then I couldn't get the glitch to work again, so I was stuck there. So I had to go back to the beginning of stage 4, the area where it's, we're not going to say exactly why, but it reminds us of the Truman Show.
Right.
I had to go there. And so this is why the whole stage 4, the first 7 tests, I know very well because I did them twice. And this is where I was looking at them going, even knowing the answer, I just did it. Even knowing the answer, some of these objectives are really hidden and I don't know, I wouldn't know what's going on. I could see why I was confused the first time. Yeah, so that was very much if I hadn't been playing, I would have rage quit at least for a while.
I found as well that, again, the kind of Valve polished smoothness. I finished that level and then you gel the cube so that you open the top part so you can bounce up, right? So you gotta bounce, and then ping your way through.
Yes, I did like that once I realized that's what I was supposed to be doing. I was trying all sorts of ways to bounce myself across on the platform and couldn't make it work. But because of the mechanics, I kept thinking it was something wrong with the game. Because
I like that, because it's kind of like the infinity loop from Portal.
But with bouncing.
But with
so
gels.
I did like that, yeah.
I felt very clever when I solved that. And again, this game has a lot of hard puzzles, and I think it does have that kind of payoff once you, in some of the levels that are well designed, where you solve it and you get that kind of Portal feeling like, I'm really smart. Yeah, so good times.
Yeah, I'm just not sure I always felt that way. I wanted to, and I think that's probably the biggest thing. And that's the thing with this game. There are some good levels, and there are some good parts to levels, but the overall game, what I would say is I just didn't feel that I was enjoying it. Some of the levels felt way too easy. And like I said, I feel like there's a real inconsistency with the difficulty. It wasn't really ramping up in a way that felt good. It felt ramping up quickly and then dropping you back down to easy and then back up to hard again. It didn't really make me feel smart. And I think that that's something that's definitely missing in this game. But I am going to talk about, first, I just want to say, again, just a bit of summary of kind of overall. Now, we've already talked about the last level and that we both feel that the actual level is too easy and the hidden other ending was, I don't know, I don't feel like we've been teased enough to look for stuff to really find it. Or, I don't know, there was a part of me, especially after having played through so much of Stage 4 twice, that I didn't really feel like I wanted to go looking for it. I was quite happy to go and find somebody who had done it. But then when I saw how easy it was and I started the game back up and saw that actually the autosave allowed me, I thought the autosave was going to be on the platform or something. It was more just before the platform, so I could redo it. So I've done it, yay. But that ending, I don't know, the second ending looks like we die again.
Yeah, I don't know. I just...
And so it kind of feels like, well, what's the point then of having the second ending? The video I watched, obviously the player knew to avoid the falling area, but then the game just stops. You don't actually make it properly outside.
So if you don't walk to the truck, then the game just ends, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, the cans fall from the ceiling, and you see the cans fall, and then the game just ends and there's credits. But what's the point of that? If I'm going to die either way, that's no good. If I get pulled back in, then show me like they did more end of Portal 1. If I have 2 endings where I die, there's no point in getting the second one.
Yeah. I mean,
at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's what they chose to run with, it's, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. So they're just showing you that there's really no escape, basically.
I guess, but that doesn't feel...
It is pretty anticlimactic, yeah.
Yeah. So the story for me, there just wasn't much. The voice acting, I didn't really like. Nigel, as I said before, feels very inconsistent. There's nothing really new here. Like I was hoping for a new gel or something that feels really good.
Cool. Yeah.
But what we got were the curved walls, which I'm not a fan of because of the way they work. If they were automatic, once you hit them, you always fall out at the same spot. I would be okay with them.
Or if they were already painted orange anyway.
That would be fine too. The red screens, which, like I said, I for a while was very perplexed as to what they actually did and why I was dying.
Mm-hmm. I mean, apart from just like the mechanics of a few levels, again, a lot of weird. That one where you got to like run and bounce across, hit an angled platform that you've already painted, bounce back, and as you're bouncing back, pivot round and shoot the blue onto the cube that's holding down the switch. Did you do that the same way as me? I think there's like a...
I'm not sure because I'm having trouble picturing that one. I know that there were times where I was trying to shoot cubes from in the air.
In mid-air, yeah. And that was tough. Took a few times. But yeah, a lot of parkour on this. You got to be kind of quite nimble with your fingers on this.
The level difficulty a bit all over the place. It's, like I said, I think it's almost as though they were aware that they were making a Portal game with some of their in-jokes. And I really want something new. If you're selling me a game, and again, you were seeing it as a mod, I was seeing it as a game. Yeah. If you're selling me a game, you need to bring something to the table that's really yours, in story or in mechanics or something. They've given us the gel gun, but we were essentially doing that before with Portals. It's just easier to do now. So overall, I'm just kind of unhappy. The parkour momentum stuff didn't really work well. There were good stuff, but this is why I'm very much like, yeah, pay $1. I've played some of the test chamber stuff from Portal 2, not a lot, but some of the top rated stuff, and it felt better. And I think that that's a lot of where the complaints are coming from, is that people understand it's mods, and yeah, some people don't want to pay for them. I'm quite happy to pay for good mods, and I think that, yeah, probably what I paid for it, I probably am fine. But $5?
Well, considering you can buy Portal 1 and 2 for cheaper than that.
Right. And I think that that's part of the problem. Obviously, the first time I played it, it was more expensive than that. Right. But
yeah, if you're coming into Portal now, and you get that on a summer sale, then yeah, you're paying $1 for both games.
I really wanted to like this, and I wouldn't say that I would never play anything these guys do again. I think that there's potential here, but I just think that a lot of people are mad because they paid for it and they've played other things that were free that were better.
There are some pretty other good mods that I looked at, because one thing this did do was it made me think about playing mods again, and I was like, oh yeah, I found some really good ones where basically they're using Stephen Merchant's voice and GLaDOS, and they've just like cut and paste all their lines to make new sentences kind of thing. It looks really good.
That sounds good. I know I've started Portal Stories Mel. I haven't finished it. That was a very interesting thing because when you first start off, you start off in old Aperture, and that felt very interesting and looked very different. And I think that's part of why people are kind of complaining, because Mel is free. It's a weird area we're in, this gray area of mods and paying for mods. I feel like if people make good stuff, they should be able to charge.
And I think the public should decide exactly, like they should be free. If someone makes a mod and they're like, I spent 5 years of my life doing this and I want to charge $5 for it, they're free to do whatever they want. I'm not going to be up in arms about it. Like, I just won't buy it then.
But at the same time, I do feel like people are allowed to complain about it.
Oh yeah, they should. Yeah, exactly. And the Steam review situation should be allowed to reflect how it does, So yeah, fair enough. They chose it. That's what they wanted. I'm sure they made a few bucks off of it, and
hopefully enough that they feel that they've got enough to pay for their time.
It's worth their time, you know? But I mean, but the thing is with the modding community, I do understand because the modding community for any game is insane. You know, these guys work for free. The Fallout modding community is bananas, man. These guys are like...
Pretty much any Bethesda one. The Skyrim ones are insane like, as well.
Entirely new games for nothing, you know, just because they want to. They're basically, well, I mean, they're showcases for getting real jobs in programming, but it's incredible, man. Fallout, yeah, the Skyrim mods, like, they're all off the charts. But I mean, if some guy makes it and they want to charge for it, who am I to judge them, you know? I mean, I will or I won't buy it. Yeah.
One nice thing here, did you notice the person who did the composer and audio editing?
No, I didn't pay attention to the credits.
This was our friend Harry Callahan, known as Harry 101 UK. So we've been sending each other back and forth at these videos we found of Portal-related songs that basically he's done.
So it's him that did the music for this one,
yeah. And that is one thing that I definitely put was the music is decent. Yeah. I really enjoy, outside of the obviously bad metal one that was bad on purpose, but
which I kind of enjoyed, but what I didn't enjoy, this is one of my few notes that I wrote down, was that is funny, but he narrates over the top of it. And it's like, let me listen to one thing at a time, man. Like, just let me hear the song and don't speak. Speak after the song's done, or speak when I move away from it if it's on repeat. Like, just stop bombarding me with, like, sounds. I don't know if it played at the same time for you, but it did for me, and it was like, all right, I'm done. I'm moving on.
If you haven't checked out his channel, so again, it's Harry 101 UK, and you're into Portal stuff, you're going to want to.
You're in for a treat.
He has some fantastic parodies to songs from The Nightmare Before Christmas and some Christmas carols. They're really well done. I highly recommend them. And that's kind of it. I kind of want to end on a good note. Was there anything else that you wanted to say?
Nope. That was pretty much it. Yeah. No, overall, I enjoyed it. I'd recommend it if you want to pay for a mod. But again, like I said, I didn't pay $5 for it. If I paid $5 for it, yeah, I'd probably be pretty upset. But I paid $1, I think, and I'm happy. So there you go.
Fair enough.
Gaps filled and more gaps created.
Today we're going to be discussing a game/movie, which is called Late Shift. I don't know how you want to do this.
Yeah.
Do you want to go all the way through?
I mean, yeah, we may as well. I mean, I wrote things down kind of in no real order.
Yeah, that's helpful.
And then I was like, I'm not sure if I want to be bothered going through that again. But now that we're
says the guy who has all 7 endings.
Now I do, because I went back and I absolutely hammered it. Which you got the good ending the first time round, so
yeah, I did. I looked into it, but I will say I looked into it because I knew what I wanted from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Because you played like a sociopath then.
No.
Yeah.
All this and more on the next episode of Filling in the Gaps.